We're going to bring up our next guest speaker. We're going to get a big round of applause for Mr. Jimmy Dainard. He's going to be talking to you guys today about how to grow and scale your 8-figure real estate business. We appreciate you, brother. Oh, we got that clicker? Alex, clicker.
How's everyone doing? All right, we are going to cover a very big topic in a very short amount of time, so it might be a little bit vague, but we're going to talk more about the concept. Cool, thank you. Down, okay. And so real quick, for those who don't know me, my name is James Dainard. I am a real estate investor out of the Pacific Northwest. I'm very active in Washington State. I've been a full-time investor since 2005, 6, roughly, in there. How I got started in this journey is I was a senior in college, and I took a job for a wholesaling company. Basically, the only reason I even took the job is I was trying to get sales background and sales skills, because what that job was going out, knocking on people's doors, getting them to sell the property, and wholesaling it to an investment company. So I took this job as a senior in high school, or in college, and then I kind of fell in love with real estate during that time. Is that burning out? Okay. So we started wholesaling, and then what happened is I fell in love with real estate, fell in love with the deal, and once I graduated college, I started full-time at that point. I went from being part-time, knocking on doors after college, to then doing it full-time, and we got a business built up there where we became kind of the off-market deal guys up in Washington, where we went from doing like 1 to 2 deals a month to 25 to 30 deals a month. During that time, everything was going great. We started flipping properties, building up our rental portfolio. I was about 25 years old, had kind of accumulated quite a bit of income and wealth. And then what happened was 2008, where 2008 was a different thing, right? Who was investing back in during that time? A ton of money, like I was making $400,000 or $500,000 a year at 25 years old. We were flipping, I owned 15, 20 properties. I was flipping 4 or 5 properties at a time. And then once subprime mortgages went away, so did my real estate investing career and capital. But it was probably the best thing that has ever happened to me in my life. You know, I always look at major fails as the time that you're going to learn. And either you can exit and go do something else, or you can learn what happened and then build new systems from there. So in 2008, we started our own wholesaling business, and what happened is a lot of people left the market. There wasn't a lot of competition, there was a lot of foreclosures, and we built up a lot of different systems, and we went from being a very small wholesale shop doing 20 to 30 deals a month to where we are now doing 300 to 400 deals a year. And so the only reason I'm bringing that up is because the last 12 months or last 6 to 8 months, everyone has learned a lot of lessons during this time. If you're an active investor, short-term rental, you're flipping properties, we've seen compression, and compression usually means some sort of loss, and that is okay. You have to learn from your mistakes, recapitalize, and stay in the game. Because if I would have left the game, my life would be completely different today. And we're not going to talk about the topic that we're talking about now, is how I live in Newport Beach, California, and can manage my business remote. So since my real estate career, me and my business partner, we flipped over 2,000 properties. We've been involved in over 3,500 transactions directly with investors on fix and flip, BRRRR, apartment deals. We sell value add. In addition to, we have funded over $1 billion in loans since that time. So we went from being basically bankrupt to doing over 2,000 deals, funding over $1 billion in loan. In addition to, we have built up a numerous amount of companies up in Washington. So to give you a little bit, I guess I just went through this whole stories. We'll kind of blow through this. So since building that, so right now, we went from, again, starting in 2008, we had to restart. We had an office with 2 people in it, 4 outside salespeople, and since then, we've grown it to over 80 full-time employees, and we run 11 different businesses up in the Pacific Northwest. In addition to, just by doing good business, I've also got the job of being an on-the-market podcast host, which has been an awesome thing. So, for the last 20 years, I've been in the deals, and for the last 2, we started kind of expanding out and doing more speaking events, kind of giving back to the community, and I will say that has been one of the highlights over the last couple of years, is just kind of giving back. But let's talk about working remote, and how do you manage your businesses from remote? Because who is a hands-on operator in this room? Where they're not investing, they are doing the work themselves. Okay, a big chunk of you. And you guys, when you're getting started, that's really important. You got to get your hands on things. You got to learn things. You got to figure out what the problems are. I look at operators and business owners kind of two different ways. There's like the coach, and then there's the quarterback owner. I'm more of a quarterback owner. I like to get involved. I like to get in with my team. I like to get in the weeds. That can make it very hard to scale things sometimes. Also, it burns up time. It can burn up stress. But let's talk about how we manage these businesses from afar. So up in the Pacific Northwest, we have 11 businesses. These are our core businesses here. We have Project RE, which is our education and kind of free education and coaching company. We have Heaton Dainard Real Estate, which is a brokerage that does about 300 to 400 transactions a year directly to investors on the acquisition and disposition, and then we do all the underwriting for our clients. We have Buck Buys Houses, which is a wholesaling company that typically we're doing an additional 200 to 300 deals a year off market direct to investors. Intrust Funding is our hard money lending business where we fund direct to investors on new construction, fix and flip and burr properties. And typically we're doing 40 to 50 loans a month with that business all up in the Pacific Northwest. And then we have a call center that we provide marketing nationwide for investors where we are doing professional dialing, helping them get seller leads and expand their business network. And then primarily we have our development company, which is Limelight Development, where we are building 40 to 50 townhomes a year. We're flipping about 50 to 60 homes a year. And then we're typically, like right now, we're renovating about 200 to 300 apartment doors all at the same time because we do a lot of active syndicating. So we are very, very active investors in the Pacific Northwest. This didn't happen overnight. This happened by doing hard work and taking steps like what Alex was talking about, was scaling your business up. We started as wholesalers and we built this up by just taking the next logical step in our business, and that's how we've been able to scale. I'm not one of those people that hears about a new shiny idea, and if it's not matching my business model, I'm not gonna go get distracted by that idea. I wanna do something that complements what I'm doing now. So we went from being wholesalers, and then we had these deals, and we're like, okay, well, people need money for deals, so we started the lending business. Then we knew that our clients needed help with the assistant on the renovation and the dispositions. We started the brokerage. And so what we built is we built numerous companies that all work with the same client all the way through, and we can collect fees all the way through, and that has changed our whole business trajectory. We're not just trying to get the one fee, we're trying to provide service to where we can actually, the clients are okay with paying numerous fees to us throughout the process because we're fixing issues and we're providing solutions. So every business that we've started is always a complementary to where we can help our client in addition to revenue the deal to the highest and best use. So I wanted to give you guys an overview of our businesses because they're so busy, it can make it very hard to manage from afar. Again, we're doing about combination of over 1,500 transactions a year between all the different businesses. In addition to some of these systems are very complex. When you're flipping 40, 50 homes at a time, it is a very high management process. When we build we don't hire builders, we build in-house. So we're running subs, soups, and we have a lot of bodies that we have to manage, and I have to manage them from afar. So how did I get to doing this? Because, for my whole life, I was in my business, and I never thought that I was gonna be able to leave. And I always, when I was a younger kid, I was born in Washington, was born and raised in Washington, but I knew I wasn't supposed to be in Washington. I am not a rainy, depressing guy. I like to be in the sun. I like palm trees. I like beaches. I like people. I like being active. And my initial goal when I went to college was to move to California right after I graduated. That was what I was gonna do. And then I got inside the business, I fell in love with the business, and I stayed where I was. And now granted, I'm very happy I made that choice because it's worked out very well, but there was always something there that I was like, I gotta get out of this state. Like waking up, like the year I moved, it had rained 124 days in a row. It sucks the life out of you. And so I knew I wanted to leave. And then how did this decision happen? So in 2018, our businesses were ripping. Things were going really well. I actually went down to Newport Beach to go look at a new boat. And I remember walking around and I'm like, walking on this boat and I'm looking at the real estate and I'm going, what am I doing? I need to move. I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And within a 30-day period, I went back to my office. I talked to my business partner and told him what I wanted to do. He knows I'm kind of a workaholic, so he's like, yeah, do whatever you want. And within 30 days, we went from born and raised, running tons of businesses up in Washington. All my family's there. We listed my house, we sold it, and we moved within a 30 to 60-day period. Because I made the decision of what was going to make me happy. And that is very important. As you guys, this is a high-stress business. It's a very rewarding business. But you have to make sure that you're seeing all of, what I've learned is I have to enjoy life. And instead of making up the excuses of that I can't, I have all my businesses, I can't leave my businesses, I had to figure out what the solution was. I felt like I was trapped in work, but I got to a point where I was like, I can do this. Or I was going to try it for 1 year. I was like, I'm going to try this for 1 year, and if it doesn't work, I'll move back, and that's what it's going to be. But within 2 weeks of moving down, I was like, I can't move back. So I was like, there's no way I'm leaving the beaches in the sun. And so I had to figure out how to manage my team from afar, right? Like I was saying, I'm a quarterback coach or a quarterback owner. My staff has heavy access to me. And that is not for everyone, but that's the way I like to operate things. And so what I had to do is I had to make sure, because all my employees trusted me, we have a lot of really good employees at our office. We've had, I would say 65% of our staff has been with us for longer than 7 years. And so we have a very, very good team, but as that team, they got used to a lot of processes and they were used to always seeing me there. So the first thing I want to talk about is being felt. My employees in my company can feel me even though I'm not in the state. They know where I am, they know what is going on, and I'm constantly communicating, and they feel that I'm present when I'm not there. And the reason that is so important is, as your team, who has more than 5 people on their team? Those relationships, and that's a fair amount of you guys. You guys are starting to build your team up. Who has more than 10 people on their team? Who has more than 20 people on their team? That's awesome. Like, a lot of good teams getting built out. But as your team gets builder, it's harder to be felt. And as you leave the market, or if you want to work remote, it's harder to be felt. And so I had to work on that. So how did I do that? So actually one of the better things that happened to me was COVID, because I made this move, then COVID hit, and then it went to remote work. So it kind of rapidly made my team trying to have to figure it out. But the most important thing I had to figure out was what was going to be my schedule, how are they going to feel me, and how am I going to keep them motivated, right? So things that we did, and we'll talk about it in a second, is we put in tech, but part of it was I had to make a commitment because I had to get on a travel schedule. Just because I was moving states and wanting to remote work, I still had to figure out what the balance was. So typically, on average, is every month I'm in Seattle to 8 to 9 nights a month. I have to make that commute. I had to build it in my schedule. That was part of what this transition was. The goal is to get down to 4 nights a month by the end of the year, to where I'm going up to Seattle 2 to 4 nights a month, and then I can bring it down a notch. But it has to be layered in. I couldn't make that big jump where when I first move, I would come up 12 to 13 nights a month. And so I've slowly phased it down so my team gets more and more used to it. And during this time, we've had 0 turnover, because that was my biggest concern. Making sure that my team felt good about it, they trusted me, they wanted to be with me, but they had to adapt, and I had to kind of do it on a tapered phase. One thing that if you guys want to make this transition, another thing I'm really big about is you still need to make those in-person meetings. Zoom and all this technology is great. You can communicate, you can go through projects, you can get the systems ironed out, but if you don't have that in-person connection and communication, it can really bring your sales and your whole team down. And so I do want to emphasize that I make the time to get up to Seattle. I meet with every one of my employees. I'm going through their goals. I'm going through their jobs, and they still have that connection. The next thing is, when you're working with people, they have to have clarity in what they're doing. If I'm in the office all day, I can kind of rapidly improv things. I can, fix issues with them at that time. But if I'm not there, they need to know detailed what the systems are. So in that first year, we have very good systems at our business, but I had to document everything out. They need to know what happens, when it happens, and then lay it all out for them. If they don't have those systems in play, like today, if we're starting something new and I haven't formally written it out and given the game plan, it doesn't go well. My team doesn't adapt as well. So as a business owner, I have to pencil in the time to make sure that I'm laying out all those plans. The next thing is accountability. They still have to have accountability to me if I'm not there. It's really easy for me to go into the office and see who's working and not working, but if I'm not there, I don't know what's going on. So things that we also do is we have a schedule of remote meetings with all my core staff and management teams. No matter what, that meeting is hitting if I'm out of town, because I want to stay engaged with them. I want to figure out what their goals are and keep them accountable as well. Clear communication is essential. Ambiguity, vagueness does not work when you're trying to manage remote. They need to know clear direction, be decisive. And then also access. Even though we have all these transactions going on, my employees and my staff knows that they can get a hold of me at any time when they need to fix that issue and continue on. And you guys, this seems like a lot, and for everybody that wants to work remote or work out of state, you don't have to do these things. But when we are doing 1,000 to 1,500 transactions, there's so many things going on. That's the way that we have to operate. In addition to me moving down to California didn't mean that I didn't want to stop growing. We have done more transactions since I moved. Every year we are growing our transactions. I'm not in a stable, like that's just the way I'm wired. I want to grow every year. If I'm doing 300 to 400 transactions with my brokers this year, I want to do 5 next year. And the next year I want to hit 6. And so having that access allows me to grow. Now, if I get to a point where I don't want to grow anymore, I can kind of bring back my access. But you really want to take inventory on yourself, what your goals are, and how do you want to scale them that point, and then you can set up the right management from there. Processes and paperwork. We're gonna get a little bit in the weeds right now because I know we don't have tons of time, but I want to kind of touch on this. So the biggest thing that we had to do was that first year that I moved is every employee wrote out their own SOPs. Because we have a good staff, average 5 to 10 years on there. They know what they're doing. But we had to make sure that every little like my transaction coordinator, we have a full SOP on everything that she does, every process she has. Our loan processor, full SOP. Our sales teams, they have full SOPs. Does everyone know what an SOP is? That's a standard operating procedure. And so at any time I'm hiring, their jobs are all listed out, what they do, how they do it, when they do it. And so when someone comes in, there's no ambiguity, because if I'm not there, they gotta have clarity. So make sure that you document your processes. I didn't do this for 14 to 15 years into my business. That was a huge, huge mistake. Nowadays, anything that we're starting, it starts with an SOP. Always document your processes, because if you try to backtrack on it, it's a pain in the butt. So make sure that you're doing this. Contracts and forms, clarity. I'm a huge contract person. Contracts are written to clearly describe what the nature of the transaction is or what the job is at that point. So the clearer my contracts, the more clarity my employees are gonna have. And so detailed job descriptions, in their employment agreements, what they do, when they do, how are they compensated. For my construction teams, how do the processes work from there? It's all documented with contracts. Clear job descriptions, we just kind of touched on that. Make what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it. And then make sure you have clear expectations. That is the biggest thing. As an owner, when we have that many teams going on, we have different expectations for each team. They're different businesses. Even though they all complement each other and they're all in the same space, they're all real estate investment, they all do different things. And so making sure each team has the goal, visions, and expectations is very, very essential. Technology that I use for my business, Salesforce. We use it. It is not for everybody. It's a very expensive software, but it is very, very efficient too. So one great thing that we've used with Salesforce is now we have we've gone through our SOPs, we've documented the processes, and the great thing about Salesforce is I can load it into Salesforce and it has tons of automations that it's constantly staying with my staff. For like my sales team, once we have a new lead come in, they know exactly what happens within a certain time phrase. It automatically goes over to my salespeople. My salespeople then contact them, they do a one-on-one. Then they then they get them over to get pre-qualified. Then we get them in the education platform to make sure they're building out their teams right. Then it goes into a sale. So everything is automated. Once a task is completed, the next employee is queued in and they know what to do next. And so the first thing we had to do with Salesforce is we had to build out every automation we wanted for every business and every function. And that took a tremendous amount of time. But now, as I'm out of town, these things are going. So if a transaction goes, I know the next step is happening. And not only that, I can pull the report and plug the holes if I see that it's been broken down. Monday.com is what we just transitioned to for our project management software for our construction. We have at any given time, we have 40 new builds going on, 20 to 30 flips going on, and 100, right now we're turning about 500 apartment doors all at the same time. That is a very complex business when you kind of pull it back out. You're managing people, you're managing time, you're managing costs. And so make sure you have a general template to load in all the information where your team can all go to one central location. If you don't want to do Monday.com, an even simpler one is Smartsheets. It's just essential. It's a very simple, essential place. That's actually a screenshot from one right there. That's actually a list of flips that we had going on. It has the address, who's responsible for what all the bids were that were collected on there. They update the budget. It has a picture link, so I can walk through every project that I have and know exactly what the status is at any given time. So to have one central location is essential. You guys, Smartsheet's really cheap too. If you have any business, you can put it on there. It's very simple to use. Your team can jump on it. I would highly recommend it. Another thing we used is Asana, task management. It's a simple place to put all your, one objective in. You assign your tasks out to your employees. You can see when they're done, when they're not done, and then queue over. And then obviously we all use Zoom right now, right? We're still doing remote meetings and just getting that FaceTime in with people on a daily basis. So live where you want. California has a lot of transplants. Who's moved into California? Oh, lucky you guys. You guys grew up in California? I'm jealous. Who wants to move out of California? I know there's a lot of reasons to move out of California too. So what you want to ask yourself is, what's holding you back? And then where do you want to go? Because you guys, if I can move myself in 45 days with the amount of businesses we have going on up there, anybody can do this. It's about identifying what you want to do, making the decision, doing it, and then building the systems behind it. But part of it, I can live where I want because my team is my lifeblood. I am dependent on these people to make sure that this is processing through. So out of that, I need to know that I have a great team, they operate well, they have clarity. I need to make sure that I have detailed reporting that backs that up. Because as we're running all these different projects, I have to be able to look at it from an owner and go, where is the bottleneck in this process right now? If we have something urgent, like in the last 48 hours, we had $62 million in lots dropped on my plate with permits. And I just had flown back. I woke up in the morning and I had this in my email box, like, James, I need these unloaded. So within a 12-hour period, because we had detailed reporting, my team is my lifeblood, we had these getting dispoed, and we've already sold off 20% of that in 24 hours. We did that by systems, right? We had, it's like these lots came in, we spreadsheeted it, we put it in the sales platform, we started sending out the text campaigns, the sales guys jumped all over it at that point. By having these reports, I know what's being sold, when it's being engaged, how many contacts they've made during that time, and if they need to increase their contacts. I was literally texting my guys on the way up, and I was giving them shit because I sold 10% of it off. And I'm like, you guys only made this many calls, but I can't, I can reach out, I can talk to them, coach them if I know what they're doing. If I give it over to my salespeople and I'm like, you guys, what's going on with these lots? And they're like, oh, we're making phone calls. And I'm not getting any action. I want to go, how many calls are you making? You need to make 50 calls today to this clients. How many contacts? How many people did you get on the phone? Let's get them in the office. But if I can't report that, it's all loose conversations. Loose conversations get to a loose outcome. So make sure that you can document these things. I can live where I want because I had to learn how to delegate. I am a terrible delegator. I'd rather just put my hands on it and fix it myself. And so learning how to delegate, what did that look like at first? I had to document again out what I wanted done, what my vision was, who was responsible, and then what is the process for them to come bring me back on things. And I had to establish boundaries. You know, if I was in office for 17 years and I was working 60 hours a week, everyone had access, they would bring me their problem, I'd fix it. Now I have to let them fix it. And they have to bring me back the solutions. And so who has a problem delegating? I'm absolutely terrible at it. And so, but what I had to do is I had to start with my vision of how I wanted my life to live. And I knew the way that I wanted to live was not going to work with the way I was running at the time. So start that way, work backwards, and then write out what's the most important things that you need to look at on every type of project. Then work backwards with what the policy, the procedures to get to that conversation. Another thing I had to really make sure I had to learn is I have to be extra positive at all times with my team. When you have that many transactions going on, there's a lot of fires. Fires lead to stress. It also can mean that I want to get things done and I'm very short. The same amount of fires are still going on, actually more, right? We're doing more business and more fires. I had to make sure that every message I was delivering was very, very positive, right? The team needs to make sure that they know that I'm in there. And so I had, things that I've done in the last 12 months is I hired a business coach too. How do I communicate well with people? How do I get my message across to where they feel good about it? So all these things are all good. And you guys, no one is too big. I would recommend everyone should get a mentor and a coach. I never had one for 15 years. I self-taught everything. And it's been great to just look at it from an outside perspective. I was always like, well, I'm doing all this stuff. Why would I need a coach? Everyone needs a mentor and a coach. Get that soundboard to put back. It's been very, very essential for my business recently. And then be available and then make sure that you have management layers. So over these 3-year periods, as we've been building this out, I've been bringing in different managers. There's a construction manager. There's our operations managers for our loans, so we know what's going on. I just hired a sales manager that I'm giving vested interest in my business for the brokerage so he can grow it out. So as I'm scaling back and I'm kind of taking my steps back, I'm bringing in the right people, the right pieces, and I'm layering them in to where I know they can grow, but I don't have to keep my hands on it all the time. So make sure you find those right people and partners. And you guys, with that, I'm going to kind of wrap up because we got a tight time window. Good to go? Cool.
Man.